Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. This is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
Salute.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Randall. How's it going?
Good?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my my podcast voice going well. Since
Were you trying to get your podcast voice going, or you're trying to sound like Michael?
all right, fine. Seeing if I could, how best can I just, wiggle my way into a permanent spot on the podcast? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you've already got it.
Nice.
As a roadie.
Oh. It's so much easier behind the mic than to carry the mics.
Yeah, I know, ain't it?
Well, we are really excited to be back. Happy to connect with you some more and spend some more time talking about Texas wines and why we love them, and have a little bit more education. This is our first 60 episodes we've gone through so far.
I know. We were actually at a Stone Trough, and that was our milestone episode. We were 60. We've been doing this for 2 years now.
But we're really excited to be back here in Cleburne, and we are here at Wintergrass Vineyards and Winery.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And we're actually going to hang out with Tyler and Amy. Is that correct, Bauer?
That's correct, yes.
Yep. Awesome. I got to enunciate words properly today.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Words are hard today for me.
Well, it's a great little location. I'm excited to be here too. So, Will, where can our listeners find us?
Well, they can find us on Facebook at We Know Texas Vino, and then find us on our website at weknowtexasvino.wine. And then obviously you can find us on any podcasting platforms out there. And when you find us, go out there and give us a 5-star rating. Leave us some feedback. We love our feedback that we hear from our listeners and stuff, because that's the only way we make the show even better is if you tell us what we're not doing great, or what we're doing great, or what you like and dislike.
We can only get better.
That's right.
So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, all right, fine. That's so gracious. Well, this is a really unique space. It came first. Cleburne it was a fun drive. It's not too far away from Dallas. I think it was maybe an hour drive, if that. So it's not too far from any central Dallas location to just about any decent winery around the area. You get a little travel time, but the building is really fun. I almost feel like I'm inside a barrel with the way the wood is going.
I never thought about that until you just said now.
I think I say a lot of things that are thought worthy.
I know. Well, you're listening to We Know Texas Vino, episode 61. We're at Cleburne, Texas. We are at Wintergrass Vineyard and Winery. So welcome, Tyler and Amy, to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we already know who's going to dominate the show now.
Yeah, I wonder who that'll be.
Well, I like to hear the wine industry is such a unique industry to be in. Typically it's not one of those things that someone just wakes up one day and says, "I'm going to do that," or actually maybe just the opposite. People have career paths or longevity and just go one day is like, you know what, we're just going to throw caution to the wind and let's go make wine.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear the story about how this location came to be and how the Wintergrass grew.
Yeah. Well, the journey all began with a trip to Lowe's.
Wait a minute.
That
Hardware store?
Hardware store. Well, the garden center.
Oh, the garden center.
That's literally the origin story. It all started with a trip to Lowe's. That is the origin story.
That sounds like the beginning of either typically a good idea or a bad idea. You go there for like light bulbs or to get a key made, and you walk out with a gazebo, and you're like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly. It was a gazebo that kind of started the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
It may or may not have happened to me a few times.
Right? Yeah, so I had built a gazebo in the backyard and going through the garden center and saw these grapevines. I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool if put these in the ground, they grow up and shade the little pergola. And so I bought the vines, put them in the ground, and thought, well, I need to figure out what to do with these things. And so that just kind of led to a journey of exploring grape growing, and then that led kind of naturally to winemaking from there.
Okay, so I know that's not all the story. I mean, that's the abbreviated story.
Yeah, that's just the abbreviated.
We got an hour
story.
podcast,
okay,
so we're going to draw this out a little.
We're going to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we've been on your website. We saw your history and stuff,
Yeah.
and this is a family venture. But how? I mean, okay, sure. It started at Lowe's, but what was your journey before that, and then how you decided to switch gears from that journey into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So for my profession, I was a minister. I was a pastor for 21 years, and we did not drink. Our the first wine that we ever had was stuff that I made.
Yep.
So we had nothing to compare it to, so it was great.
The bar was real low.
I think it was like Welch's Concord grape juice that we started with.
You got to start somewhere.
That's funny.
A little carboy and some yeast, and off we go. So yeah, I did that as a hobby winemaker for 10 or 11 years, and started with just like grape juice, and then bought kits, and then started to find picket places to do grapes, and built my own little press. It was very much a hobby that just kind of got bigger and bigger and more. Made my own press, made this, that, and the other. Very kind of self-taught, and the internet. Didn't take any classes, but fermented everything I could get my hands on.
Nice.
And then you started volunteering at a local winery.
Yeah. So to get more information, I started volunteering at one of our local wineries here, and got to know them, helping out.
Let me guess, Lost Oak.
That was the one. Yeah.
Good friends up there.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, Roxanne's awesome.
Yep. So I did that. We started planting vines in our backyard. So we just had a little house in a subdivision in Burleson, and kind of an oversized lot, and started putting vines back there. I think we had 40 vines crammed in our backyard at one point. And started making wine from those guys. And
nice.
And it grew from there. We bought the property that we're on now here south of Cleburne about 2016. So we've just got a little 5 acres, little family plot, about 2 acres of vines planted. And the plan when we bought the property was not to make wine. We just wanted the vineyard, thought we might sell the grapes. And then I wouldn't say it was on a whim, but almost on a whim. I thought, well, what would it take to get a license? Because by that point I've been making wine for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And we had this little 20-foot shipping container that I had insulated, put air conditioner in there, and that was my little hobby wine making unit.
Right.
But I wonder if we can get that licensed. And filled out the paperwork and sent it in. The approach the whole way through was like, well, if the TTB or TABC or anybody says no at any point or change this or whatever, well, then we'll change it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right.
And we didn't have any hiccups the whole way through.
Wow.
Just like one thing right after the other. And so we're probably the first and only
easy.
like 20-foot shipping container winery. I mean,
maybe the previous 20 years you had a little bit of good
yeah,
the back.
mojo built up.
Yeah, just working its way through.
So Amy, during this whole process of him making wine and buying this, what was your thought process? Were you like, oh, are we really going to do this? I don't really want to do this. Okay, I'm just going to follow this and see what happens. It's just going to be a hobby, and say he's going to be done in 2 days. And
No, I mean, I am positive. I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist.
Right.
And so I always believe that he's going to do whatever it is, and he's going to do it with his whole heart, and he's going to love it. And and I've been in my career for almost 20 years now. So I knew I was stable, and I'm like, I could see he was getting burned out from his career. I could see it just wasn't going to be sustainable forever. Right. So I just knew, hey, if this is the thing that he's passionate about, then okay, this is amazing. And if it's, something I love, hey, that's bonus.
Right. That's really fun. So you start the process. You get growing. What was your what was your go-to grape, or your first grape that you decided to jump off with?
The first ones we planted were Blanc de Bois. So we wanted to find something easy to grow, disease resistant, that sort of thing. And I actually really like the grape too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had quite a bit of Blanc de Bois in there, and then we played around with just some other vinifera to varying or lesser degrees of success. And so we went with that. When we started here, we planted a library block where we had 7 rows and 8 varieties that we crammed in there to kind of see what was working well on our site and what we liked. And what we've landed on is Petite Syrah and then GSM, Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre. Those are our main ones that we've got planted now.
And those are always really good go-tos there.
Yeah.
You know, because you can always, you can either leave one or the other out and still get a great wine out of it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We thought we could have individual varietals as well as the blend out of it, and it'd give us some good versatility off of that.
And we're playing around with some of those new grapes as well.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we planted some of the these Pierce's disease-resistant varieties from UC Davis. They were just released, 5-6 years ago. So we've got some of those going that we're trialing out.
What are those?
So they're crossbred, 92 to 96% vinifera, but with some North American characteristics in there that gives them disease-resistant to Pierce's disease. So we've got 2 reds and 2 whites, and this year will probably be our first harvest of them. So we'll see what kind of wine comes from them.
Interesting. So is this going to be their second or third leaf?
This is third.
Yep. Awesome. That's amazing hearing people trying to do. We all know that the diseases that these vines get are irritating, and I'm going to use that a very short and easy word to say, But I've got vines in my backyard too right now. I've got 12 vines growing back there. Now I had a little disease called the Great Pyrenees get hold of mine.
Oh, that's different.
It's a big fluffy disease.
But every wine vineyard all has to worry about what diseases they get and how do they protect against it, and still kind of not have to worry about using chemicals, and what they're doing in science nowadays to help protect against those diseases nowadays. It's just amazing what they're doing now.
Yeah. Growing grapes, especially in this north central Texas area, is a challenge. We've got all kinds of disease pressure that we have to deal with. The humidity, we've got crazy weather, hailstorms, early freezes, late freezes, all that kind of stuff.
What?
So it's a challenge.
Texas has weird weather.
I know, it's crazy. But you said you're doing Blanc de Bois.
I do have 1 row of Blanc de Bois,
and it's kind of crazy because this is kind of like the switch foundation of Blanc de Bois, because you usually hear Blanc de Bois in East Texas,
right? Yeah,
because of how much moisture's out there. Yeah. But there's a winery over in West Texas that's growing it out over around Stephenville, and when I heard that, I'm like, well, this is not wet country over here.
Yeah. It's a really good grape, honestly.
It is. It's
very versatile.
Sturdy. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a really good grape. So have y'all this be y'all's first time getting it this year?
So with our Blanc de Bois, we've only got 1 row of it. So we make a Madeira style fortified dessert wine out of it.
Okay.
So we've got some of that in barrel. We bottled the first of it last year.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. That'd be cool to hear.
Absolutely. How many barrels do you have on site?
Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. But we do about 350 cases a year. That's kind of what our production's at.
Gotcha.
So we're very, very small. You hear of like microbreweries. We're like a nano winery.
But everything we do, the produce comes in here, and we touch it from produce. So we don't, bring in shiners or anything like that. It's all done
in-house here.
Nice.
During fermentation time, we clear out the area here in the winery and have the macro bins. And if you come on the right day, you can do punch downs and just get involved and do the whole thing.
Fun.
We don't stomp on them, but
I bet it smells good in here though during fermentation.
It is. Yeah, it's a fun time of year.
And we actually, I'm trying to remember her name. Barditch Winery. She had a little room where all of her fermentation was being done, and she said every time you open the door, that smell that you smell is the angel's wine.
Yeah, angel share.
I've never heard of that term before, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So I bet that smells like that in here.
Yeah, they use that term a lot in bourbon.
Exactly.
It's the evaporative portion that comes out of the barrel.
Right. Yeah. So
I was just topping up barrels today. Nice. Trying to replace what those angels took.
So go ahead.
Okay, notice you've got multiple different types of barrels in here.
Yeah.
So if someone's not familiar with that, what's the process? Why have multiple styles?
Sure. So we've got some stainless steel tanks. Those are primarily for our whites and rosés. We don't want any oak or oxygen exposure. We like to keep them light and crisp. And then for reds, we do them either in a a poly tank, which is a barrel replacement or poke. And I did a side-by-side trial one year with my Tempranillo and had it one in the neutral oak barrel and the other in the poly tank. And honestly, I couldn't tell the difference after a year of aging. So the poly tanks are a lot more economical. They're easier to clean. Barrels are a challenge sometimes.
Yeah. So the poly tanks, you're talking about the flex tanks,
right?
Yeah,
the flex tanks.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love those things, but they're expensive.
Yeah, but not as expensive as a new barrel.
Well, that is true.
Both of those, the side-by-side, they both had oak staves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. One of the things that starting in a vineyard and doing a winery is the cost of the startup. I mean, we all know that it's not something you just walk out there and say, you know what, here's $5 in my pocket. I'm going to open a winery with that, And are y'all familiar with...
And yet that's kind of what we did.
But, I have to commend y'all for what y'all doing, because y'all have actually, just looking what y'all have here and what I've read about y'all online and stuff, y'all did an amazing job at what y'all doing. And are y'all familiar with Red River Productions up in, I just totally went blank, off 82? Well, KK up there, she's the exact same way. She has no loans, no debt, no whatsoever. When she needs something, she saves up for it. She purchases it when she needs it, and that's a great working model.
Yeah,
because you're going into a business without debt.
Yep,
and that way you can actually, you can first off sleep easier at night. Because how many fights actually get started over finances?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And to read that y'all got this business started without going into debt, and I have to commend y'all for that, because that's a hard thing to do, especially in today's society.
Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't take out any loans. We didn't cash in any retirement plans. We didn't do any of that. So that's why if you come to our winery and look at our tasting room, it's kind of half finished.
I don't see it as half finished.
Other things that have been higher priority than siding on the.
Well, I mean, it kind of gives it that rustic feel.
It does. Yeah.
Anytime anything's unfinished, you always say it's rustic.
Yeah, rustic.
I mean, that's the reason why,
Exactly.
So how many bottles do you currently have available if someone were to come in today and try?
Yeah, so our regular table wines, we've got 2 whites, rosé, and I think it's 5 reds. We've focused, it's all Texas grapes, Texas wine that we make here in-house.
2 dessert as well.
Yeah, and we've got 2 dessert wines. We have had mead in the past. We currently are sold out, but we're going to be making some more small batches of mead to kind of play around with that. I like to play around with stuff. So
that's the fun part about making wine.
Yeah.
What can you come up with somebody hasn't come up with before?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We've got a line of sparkling wines called Piquette. So, after you finish fermentation, there's still, in reds, there's still alcohol in the skins, even if you press it, and there's sugar definitely in the whites. So we toss a little bit more water in there, a little bit of sugar, do a second fermentation on those skins, and then make a sparkling wine out of it. And,
Interesting.
So it's kind of not as full flavored as a fresh, a straight sparkling wine, but it's a fun little bubbly thing.
And I actually have to apologize for this, because usually we when we first start the episode, we actually talk about the wine that we're drinking here.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually forgot to do that, and I'm sitting here looking. I was like, why looking
Start
at this?
over.
Take 2.
But I mean, but sitting here looking, I was like, I feel like I'm forgetting something here. And then I take another drink. I was like, man, I'm really forgetting something. What am I doing here? So, and I forgot to do this at Stone Trough too, so I have to apologize for them as well. So, yeah, I'm failing on my job. Well, So tell us. I want to hear from actually Amy, since she's sitting there really quiet, and then you can fill in the blanks. So, what are we drinking over? What we got 3 glasses on the table. What are we drinking here?
Okay, so 2 of us made the same choice. We are drinking the rosé. What is the vintage on that?
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's 2021.
And there's that blank.
2020 something of America.
No. That was 22.
Okay, so it's a 2022 rosé, and it is 2 parts Tempranillo, 1 part Gewürztraminer. So that was our happy accident for this year. There were stainless steel barrels that apparently all look the same. I don't know, and they got blended together, and here we are.
Well, they do have these things where you can label things with.
Yeah, I had some masking tape with
That takes the fun out of it.
scribbles on there. But
I feel like this is a fun game.
you have to read those in order for them to work.
Oh, well, that's true. You got to read too.
Labels are for quitters.
So yes,
this is really good. Yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
I like this a lot. Yeah, the combination of the two that's pretty fantastic. Yeah, very very happy accident.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah.
How many bottles did that produce?
We had 3 barrels of it. So math.
I won't make you math on
So
that.
that was what, 55 gallons?
Yeah, they're 55 gallons.
So probably about.
You have to beautiful mind us and do all the math.
Yeah,
I know.
right?
I can just see the chocolate.
Yeah, just rate all of it.
Exactly.
150,
equations of
150, 200 cases.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to fight you.
Well, the only reason I know this is because I got 5 gallons at my house aging right now, and it makes 2 cases. So
Right,
I kind of
Oh, so you're like 10 times,
Yeah.
11 times. Okay, I got you. I got you.
Kind of guesstimating there. So
There we go.
so and what am I drinking over here?
I believe you are drinking the Malbec.
That's right.
So the Malbec came to us from a Burleson grower, and previously we had a Malbec, and he's probably going to get mad at me for telling this story, but we would serve our Malbec, and then this grower, we got grapes from them, and it was a Malbec. So now we have a Malbec. It's not a Malbec, it's a Malbec. So you are drinking our Malbec.
What's the difference besides spelling?
The emphasis.
Nice. I like that.
So I
Right
don't know
emphasis on the right syllable.
That's right.
Exactly. So I don't know the notes on the Malbec as well as my husband probably would.
Yeah, it's a 2020 Malbec. Local growers, like we said, from Burleson. And yeah.
So is the Malbec and the Malbec kind of like the Syrah and Shiraz?
He's very, very similar. Very similar.
Tempranillo and Tempranillo.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Or Tempranilla. Yeah.
You know, I have to say that, me, I'm a Texan, okay? So we try to enunciate everything as it's spelled out. And every time I've done that, I get this funny look, especially from from Jen. And sometimes, and Jen, I love you for this, but sometimes I'll do it on purpose. Just so I can get, shh, don't tell her that.
Okay, that sounds like a fun game.
It is. So, but I have to say this Malbec though is really, really, really good. And I've had a couple of Malbecs, and it's starting to be one of my new favorite ones that I'm picking up.
Nice.
But I'm finding that Texas doesn't have a lot of Malbec here. And so when you find one and it's really good, you better go ahead and get it now because it may not be there tomorrow.
Right.
So, it's just definitely an interesting new little grape that I find. So
Cool.
So, with going all the process that you went through, did you guys have any issues, or like during COVID when everything was kind of, going up and down? Was that problematic for y'all?
Well, when did we open our tasting
Yeah,
room?
we opened up in November of 2020.
Oh,
So
that's gutsy.
So we don't know anything other than COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah.
That's honestly that is our reality.
Yeah.
We had kind of planned our soft launch for a weekend in October, and we had some friends and family out for that kind of weekend. And then we had planned our opening for the first weekend in November of 2020. At that time, then they had just made a thing saying, "No, we're shutting down. We're not gonna allow." Was it bars
it was
or
bars, yeah.
They wouldn't allow bars to open, and yet they had said the Cowboys could play. And they had said that the Billy Bob's could be open because it was an event venue. And I'm like, I promise you, we're not bringing the crowds that Billy Bob's is bringing.
Yeah, exactly.
So
everybody there at Billy Bob's is literally touching each other.
literally, yeah.
Mask or not, you're still breathing on each other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we knew we were nowhere near that, so we're like, let's see what we can do. And
And shortly thereafter, they removed the restrictions, and everything's kind of normal.
That's fun.
We joke about this a lot, that pre-COVID, there was like 300, 400 wineries in Texas. And then after COVID, there was like 600 wineries after COVID. I mean, what did you have to do during COVID? Make wine.
Yeah. Some people did sourdough
and
bread.
sourdough. Don't forget the sourdough.
And succulents. We had a lot of.
Yeah, that's true. That was a thing. That was a thing.
There's a lot of things that came out of COVID that sometimes some of it was just like, okay, it just needs to go back to where it came from.
That's funny.
So, doing this whole wine adventure and deciding to do the tasting room and stuff, what kind of challenges did y'all have to actually really face? I mean, short of the finance stuff, what kind of challenges did y'all have to face to actually just kind of get going?
I think our biggest challenge is just letting people know there's a winery in Cleburne. More than one now, but we're kind of on the tail end of the Metroplex, and we're not really a destination kind of place. So getting people out here, I think, has probably been one of our bigger challenges.
Yeah,
for sure.
When I pulled up, y'all's place actually reminded me of another winery down in Fredericksburg called Serrano. Like literally pulling in, I had that same feel pulling in to theirs, and I actually told Randall, I said, this feels like we're at Serrano again.
Yeah.
And so, but I love what y'all have here. What y'all got going on here is actually really amazing. And eventually you're going to get people are going to find out, and you're going to start growing. Then you're going to need to expand and all that. But but sometimes you don't want to lose that nostalgic of where you start from.
And that's the thing. We have a vision for where we want to be. We don't want to be huge, honestly.
Right.
I talk to people sometimes that go overseas and do wine tours and everything, and the stories they always tell you about is like, well, we met this old Italian guy, and they've been making wine for generations. This tiny little hole in the wall thing, and it was a disaster, but it was the best wine. And
right.
That's more what we want to be than we've got 5 locations across the state.
Yeah.
So it's going to be us. Here if you come to the tasting room, or maybe one of our volunteers jumps in to help us if we go on vacation. But we're really hoping to focus on that wine community. Just a place to come and hang out and drink decent wine, and relax, enjoy.
So if there are listeners out there, and I know there are, that are looking at or thinking about, you're shaking your head.
We don't have no listeners at all.
I'm getting to the point of what they are, but those that are contemplating taking that step of getting into, maybe they're at that moment where they're doing something else for a career path, and they're thinking about, what if, about jumping into doing that. What would be a piece of advice that you might give them?
Oh man,
and I kind of want to hear from both of you on that.
And we actually do have listeners out there that have either just started a winery or getting ready to start one. So we do have that out there.
So I think that my advice would be have a good support system, whether that be the person that you are, in partnership with in your marriage or in your life or whatever, but also the broader community. We did go up and volunteer quite a bit at some of the other wineries at Lost Oak, at some of the other places, and got to know some of the people and what does it look like? What should we be nervous about? What should we be scared of? What should we be looking out for? So I think that was a big piece for us, and just kind of being ready to say, okay, we're going to take the leap. And when you take the leap, you leap. You don't baby step.
Right.
You don't tiptoe. Like we went for it.
And it's that whole leap of faith. And that's where you got to you literally have to put your faith in that, you're going to do this and it's going to be okay. And you just got to believe in that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And we kind of already talked about, we didn't take out loans and stuff because I'm somewhat risk averse. So,
somewhat, that's cute.
Man, I like her. She's all like, you call people out right away. I don't even know you. I'm calling you out.
Tell you what.
Well, I think she knows him though.
Well,
I've met him.
I hope.
We've been married, almost 27 years?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yes, you are a little bit risk averse.
Yeah. So we try to mitigate the risk as much as we could. Amy's got a good stable career. So when I quit mine, we had that to fall back on, and we didn't have to immediately succeed with the winery. We want to give it time to kind of grow organically and not be slaves to the business.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you start out, you kind of have to be that slave, honestly.
Right.
Because you want to make sure everything's perfect.
Yeah.
As close as you can. And I'm finding that out myself, and because it's tough, it's just one gram of something put into it, you just ruined a whole batch of wine. Mm-hmm. And so I want to say ruin, you got a small window that you can make some more modifications to make it work,
Or have a good happy accident.
I was just going to say, or you get a happy accident and you make the best of it.
Mr. Negativity over here.
Come on.
Turn it into a rosé. Let's go.
Nothing else got base for sangria.
Or, if you want to go even further, you could actually turn it into like a bourbon or something,
Yeah.
Or, if you really want to stretch it out, go vodka.
Yeah. But it's certainly an option.
It is. You always got options off that a little bit now.
So, on to cuter, fluffier things.
Yeah.
I see this lovely little chocolate lab in your photos. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I got transferred to North Dakota for a few years. So I was pastoring up there, and Amy stayed down here in Texas, kind of keeping her business alive.
And that's exactly when we started planting the vineyard, when we bought the property, all of this. We start this brand new venture, and my husband takes a job in North Dakota. Come on.
Right. So my vacation every year was coming down here and planting vines.
Wow. Working vacation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
So back to the dog.
Yeah, so we got a little lonely up there, and it's cold in the winter, and we had always had dogs, but we were at a point where we didn't have one, and so we got this chocolate lab and named him Dallas.
Because he was living in North Dakota at the time.
That's appropriate.
Hey, that fits,
Yeah. Yep.
So he was a great dog. We actually lost him last summer, but he was the best dog we've ever had.
He was our best dog. He really was, and he was a really great vineyard dog and good winery dog too, because he was comfortable talking or being around people.
Yeah.
As long as you would throw something for him, you would keep him entertained. Right. In fact, sometimes we had to stop the people.
Forever.
We're like, okay, he doesn't know to stop, so you have to stop.
Yep. That's pretty funny.
And like I said, I've got a great Pyrenees that I really would like to train her to be a vineyard dog.
Yeah.
But after she tore up my vines in my backyard, I don't think that's going to work.
No, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah, may have to get a shock collar on her.
Got to do what you got to do.
In Pyrenees, that fur, if somebody were to spill some wine on there, that'd never come out.
My great Pyrenees loves red wine.
Oh, really?
And she loves beer.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have so many questions right now.
I know.
What do you do with your dog?
So the story is on the beer is we did the Gainesville Wine Stroll last year, and we were staying out at Hickory Creek, at Lake Ray Roberts at the RV, and we had an after party out there, and I made a whole bunch of fajitas and stuff, and you're not supposed to have open containers out there. And it was 11 o'clock at night. The game warden comes over there and says, yeah, y'all going to need to shut this down. And my stepdad walks over there with the Dos Equis in his hand, and he's got a little flat jacket koozie on it, and the game warden's like, you're not supposed to have open containers here. And he goes, well, my stepdad says, well, can I finish this off? And he goes, no, I need you to pour it out. So he pours it on the ground, and my great Pyrenees runs over there and starts licking it on the ground.
That's funny.
And then on the red wine, I actually had a glass of red wine sitting on my end table next to where I was sitting at, and I had gotten up, because she's never messed with that stuff before. I had gotten up and walked away and come back, and she had stuck her nose inside the glass and started licking up the red wine out of there. And I looked at her and I said, Luna, are you a wino now? And she just kind of looked at me and was licking her lips.
Like, I don't want to talk about it.
So
that's funny.
I like something that you have on your website, and this is probably one of the things that I really, really love what y'all do. Okay, so I'm gonna read off these 4 things, and you make comments off that. It says, having your wines, you like to experiment, and you don't want to be surprised with some of the wines here. And so you make 100% Texas fruit, which is amazing. 2, we won't bottle and serve wine that has obvious flaws or just plain nasty. I mean, that should be every winemaker's thing.
I mean,
you think it wouldn't have to be said, but let's be honest.
And yet,
it's true.
And then it says, we will never add residual sugar to our grapes. That right there is a key thing, because I know some people want certain brick levels, or alcohol level in their wines, and they add extra sugar in it just to get it there. And I know that also changes the composition of the wine itself. Now, if you get raw sugar that has not been bleached or anything like that, that might be a different game changer right there. Like if you literally go get the sugar cane and actually crush it and press it and all of that, it might be a different game changer there, which hint, a little experiment there.
Yeah.
You're giving him ideas right now.
Something to play around with.
If you do that, I get credit for that one. But I mean, adding residual sugar, and that's something I've been learning in class is, if it's not where you want it to be, add more sugar to it, and you get it there. But it changes the composition of it. Yeah. If it's not where you want it to be, make it into something that you've already got.
So we have relaxed on that a little bit, not on purpose. We had a Malvasia Bianca that didn't didn't finish out dry. It was at 14.5% alcohol, and it left 1% residual sugar. And we didn't add to it; it just was left over. And since then, like with the rosé, we do have 1% residual sugar on that. So there is just a little pinch.
1% is not that bad. It's still considered dry.
Yeah.
He's not going to make a sweet wine, and I think that's kind of one of his principles. Neither one of us like sweet wine, and we're the owners.
Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I like to joke around when I work at the winery. I'm a sweet guy, but not a sweet guy.
That's cute. I like it.
I get laughs all the time. But I actually, when I started drinking wines, I got made fun of because I was drinking Moscato.
Nothing wrong with Moscato.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Is that the only reason that people made fun? Or?
Well, I mean, I'm bald and fat.
I was wondering what position your pinky was in when you were drinking said Moscato. I mean,
it was like this now. Now when I drink wine, it's like this now. And then the fourth thing here is if we source wine from another winery, we will let you know that on the label.
Yes.
And that right there alone is admirable because, I mean, a lot of the wineries do that. And I think vineyards need to be noticed when their fruit's there because they worked hard for that. You worked hard. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from them, but you worked hard on making the wine. They worked hard on the grapes.
Right.
Yep.
And we should always recognize somebody's labor, because, it's hard work. I mean, I've worked in a vineyard and it's tough. I mean, I almost cut my finger off. Don't ask.
Watch out for those snippers.
Don't ask. We want to tell.
We've got time. I want to hear the story.
It made a great rosé.
love those happy accidents.
And I'm curious. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to.
Go ahead.
So I'm curious about honey wines.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
What is a honey wine?
Or mead.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's fun. It's one of those things I like to experiment with. And what's kind of nice about it is you can tailor how much your finished alcohol is going to be based on how much water you put into the honey. Because you got to dilute the honey. You can't just ferment pure honey. So you dilute it down with water and throw in the yeast. But it's one of those things you can finish it with different fruits, blackberries. And, hops is one of the things that we're going to do a hopped mead. So it'll be more like a beer kind of thing. And
interesting.
I like to do it sparkling. So it's fun little.
Kind of like a cider style-ish?
Yeah, it's similar to, and it's not really honeyed. A lot of people think that mead is always sweet, but it's not. It doesn't have to be. That's winemaker choice. Yeast want to ferment the sugar all the way out so it's dry. So if you ever have a super sweet mead, it's because the winemaker decided to add a bunch of sugar or honey at the end to bump it up. But that's not our jam, so we keep it a little lower.
So you mentioned you've done those in the past. You have but you don't currently have a.
We just sold out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What are some of the if someone were wanting to get into mead, what would be the process? Is it you mentioned fruit? Is there other things that go into it
for making it?
Yeah. What makes a mead different from a fruit wine or something else?
Yeah, it's the base is honey. Yep. So the primary thing is honey, and then you can add other fruit into that must to flavor it a
I
little bit.
did not know
and you
that.
could just straight honey mead. That's what ours were. We didn't have any added fruit or anything. It was just a straight honey mead, traditional mead.
Interesting. I did not know that. Every time I hear the word mead, I always think of barbarians and wooden glasses.
Yeah.
I typically go to Scarborough Fair and get a Ren Fair, and I'm get my pint of mead. Yeah. Well, pint of mead might be a lot, but
it depends.
What's the typical ABV on a mead?
It varies. So I made some that are 5%. So they're like a light beer with no hops. I like it around 8% because then you can have a bigger glass of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are just like honey wine would be like 12, 13, 14%. And some people will ferment it up to 17, get it really boozy.
Interesting. So the honey that you have for that, is that something is that a locally produced honey? Where does the honey come from?
Yeah. So what we bought before was just a sample pack from a online supplier because I was just playing around.
Sure.
But there are some Texas honey growers, I guess, that I can get some bulk honey from. And we actually had some people join Wine Club just recently. They've got some hives, and they're like, well, we've got more honey than we know what to do with. And I was like, maybe we can work something out.
There you go.
A little exchange here.
Here's 2 bottles of wine. I get 5 gallons.
Yep, exactly.
So now my next, obviously, my brain is just going, I'm loving this. So what is the typical amount of honey that it would take to make a bottle of mead?
So I was just batching some stuff out. I'm going to do small batches, like 5-gallon, so that I can rotate it out kind of frequently. And to make it around 8% of a 5-gallon batch, I need about 8 pounds of honey.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
That's really fun. And there's no grape in that? Is that
no grape?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a completely different. Is there a different processing that it has to go through, like licensing or anything like that?
No. So with the winery license, that allows us to make basically any kind of wine from fruit or honey. So we can make ciders, we can make fruit wines, we can make mead. We can't do any brewing. So that's the thing. No grains. We're not allowed to mess with grains, but we can do any kind of fruit or honey.
But adding hops to that is okay?
Yeah, that's one of the weird things.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I guess because you're not really fermenting the hops, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a special provision in the TTB guidelines. You could do it with hops. It's like, all right, cool.
You always got to love those, but
It's so
You
weird.
can't do it this way, however.
Yeah.
Can't you also do something to fortify?
What do you mean?
Can't you do like a brandy or something to fortify?
Yeah, so distilling's a whole other thing, which federally you cannot unless you have a distiller's rectifier's permit. You have to have a specific thing.
Right.
But this is one of the things where the states don't always agree with the feds. So in Texas, the TABC license does technically allow us to distill brandy for fortification purposes.
Okay.
So if you're making a port or a Madeira, that sort of thing, you could theoretically do that. But it wouldn't be legal federally because I don't have a distiller's rectifier's permit.
Well, then
so
with
it's
that-
kind of like the marijuana thing in some states.
Right.
Federally, it's illegal, but the states have
so
legalized
would you be a moonshiner then at that point if you did that?
Yeah, technically moonshine is any illegal distillate. So yeah.
Now, does that mean that you could sell it in the state but not out of the state? Is that how that works?
No, you're not allowed to produce it at all federally.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we won't tell them about the barrel that you and I have and the.
Yeah, we won't say that. We won't talk about that.
But I could contract with a local distiller if I had some wine that I wanted fortified and have them distill it and bring it back and then use it to fortify.
Oh yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah, and there's some local distilleries around here that would probably definitely do that. So,
Do you? And I noticed you listed fruit wines as well. Are there any fruits that you like to work with?
Not as much anymore. Early on, I played with fruit wines a fair bit, but I like grapes.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest. But I do. We've got a number of trees out here that we're hoping to get kind of a little orchard kind of thing going on. We've got figs and pears and peaches and plums. Those will probably go into mead in the future.
Nice.
We'll eat what we want, and then the rest will get tossed into the different meads. And we've got blackberries. We'll do a blackberry mead this year. Play around with that.
so kind of like Bluebell, they eat what they want and they sell the rest.
Yeah.
I don't know that Bluebell would make good wine, though. I think.
We could try it.
Well, fermented dairy, I think.
That would be.
Would that be like Bailey's?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, you get beers with lactose in them sometimes.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, we're going to have to pass on that one.
Yeah.
Well, we really sat here and we've had a great conversation with y'all and really got to learn and understand who y'all are and stuff. And it looks like Amy's about to fall asleep.
Not at all.
Or
Not
either
at
that
all.
or she's in
has an
deep
empty
thought.
glass.
I do
Oh.
have an empty glass, and that's a problem.
I like these glasses. This is a unique shape.
No, actually, what kind of style of glasses are these? I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what style they're called, but I like the shape of them. That's why
I
we
do
got
too.
them.
It's a little bit. It's round at the bottom, but it's not like an overtly oblong.
Well, it reminds me of a brandy glass. Is what it
little
reminds me of.
snifter?
Yeah.
On a stem, yeah.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the first half of our podcast here. Is there anything that y'all want our listeners to know about y'all that we didn't touch on? I mean, both of y'all have a great story. I really love y'all's story, where y'all come from and how y'all got here and stuff, because we all have our beginning stories of life, and then we have our finishing stories of life, What do you have that we haven't talked about that you want our listeners to hear about?
I mean, I think you guys have done a really good job of telling our story, retelling our story, and we're grateful for that. I think one thing I would stress is if there's anything that you see on property, anything that you see in the winery on the property, it's got my fingerprint or Tyler's fingerprint on it. I mean, it's us. It's us.
Well, are you sure? Because it says that you don't like DIY.
I really don't. So I do actually have a hashtag, things I have no business doing. That is one of my hashtags. And so I'm a really really good supervisor, I will sit on the back of the tractor while he does the work. I will sit on the mower, but
so in other words, she'll drink the wine and he does all the work.
For sure. We all have our jobs. Mine's taste tester.
DIH. So instead of do it yourself, it's do it himself.
Yes,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Gotcha.
I can hire it out. I can find somebody who will do it, but it's not going to be me. So
that's pretty funny.
And you, Tyler?
Yeah, just give Cleburne wine a try. I mean, people have preconceived ideas of what Texas wine is, or even these small little rural wineries. I can't tell you how many times people come in and they're like, wow, we were really surprised because, I don't know, the expectation is low. And that shouldn't be, because we've got some great wine in Texas.
Well, one of the things that I hear a lot working in the wineries, people are like, well, I don't like Texas wine because it's sweet. I said, are you sure it's sweet? They said, yeah. I said, what did you drink? And they'll say like a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Tempranillo or whatever. And I was like, are you sure that wasn't a sweet version of it? They said, yeah. They said, it says on the bottle dry. I said, well, then that means it has 0.001% sugar in it. And they're like, well, but it was still sweet. I said, no, more than likely it was fruit forward,
right.
Which gives it that faux feeling of being sweet. And then when I explain to them, where your palates are on your tongue, where everything tastes and stuff. Once I explain that to them, and then they're like, oh, it's kind of like the light bulb comes on.
So that reminds me of our Malvasia that we had last season, not this release, but the last release. It did have 1% residual, and so people would smell it and they would think it's going to be extremely sweet. So then they taste it, they're like, oh, it's so sweet. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's got some of those different fruit forward or whatever. But it's interesting how sometimes your tongue can play tricks on you if you don't know the difference. If you're not really sure what you're looking for.
Well, and even when you say that, I've smelled some wines that it smells sweet, and your nose sometimes will trick your tongue.
Exactly.
And you drink it, and you're like, wait a minute, this is sweet, and then you have to look at the bottle like, no, this is not supposed to be sweet here.
Yeah.
But I always tell everybody that comes into the winery that are new at drinking wine or want to learn to drink wine, I said, trust your nose, but don't trust your nose.
Trust your nose to a point.
Yeah. One of my favorite things I do is I do I love doing education. Education on wine is probably one of my favorite things because I love education personally. When I started doing this podcast or was first asked to work at a winery, being an engineer background, I wanted to know how to drink wine properly because I'm going to have to teach people to drink.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I tell them that I always do is, or I give them a pop quiz first. So I'll give it to y'all. Let's see if y'all get it right.
Oh, no. I don't like quizzes.
So what is
I'm sweating over here for you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So what is the first thing you do before you eat? Everybody fails this. I've had probably one or two people get it right.
I feel like I'm supposed to say wash my hands.
I mean, bless the food.
See, those are all the answers I get there. But
I would say put it on a plate.
Well, but it's one thing you do before you eat, and you do it inherently. You don't even know you're doing it, but you always do it every time.
Open your mouth.
You smell your food.
I was thinking maybe it's phone eats first. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Got to take a picture for the gram.
I like that phonies first. I like that. I'm going to start doing the hashtag phonies first.
Phone eats first. It's a thing. It's a thing.
But I mean, seriously, before you smell your food, do you not smell it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when they bring it to your table, you're smelling it.
That's true. As it comes
it's
out, you're
cooking.
smelling
You're smelling it.
Yeah.
And so when you smell it, you're preparing your palate before you drink it.
That's true.
Or before you eat it. And then when you take your drink or your food, you eat it, you get your palate touched, and then your nose and your palate comes together and it says, hey, this is what I'm eating here. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, your nose will smell something, but it really isn't what it's supposed to be.
But it's deceiving. Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. So that's some of the education I love doing with people and stuff. And so that's copyright coming pretty soon on that whole education there.
Just include phone eats first and you'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
I'll do that.
I'm getting that URL right now. phoneeatsfirst.com.
Well, Taylor and Amy, we had a really good time out here with y'all.
This has been fun.
Where can people find y'all at online and even at your tasting room?
Yeah, so our tasting room, we're about 45 minutes south of Fort Worth, so pretty easy to get here. Online, you can find us on Facebook, Wintergrass Winery, and I think our website is wintergrasswine.com.
I think so.
either wintergrasswine.com or wintergrasswine. No, Winery is the email. Yeah,
Okay.
wintergrasswine.com
Yes.
is the website. wintergrasswinery@gmail is the email.
It is wintergrasswine.com.
All right.
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, if it makes you feel better, there's a couple wineries that we've talked to that forgot what their address was, and they had to pull out their business card.
But physically, we're located in between Cleburne and Rio Vista.
Wow, I didn't realize y'all were that close to Rio Vista.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And we're open on Sundays for drop-ins, so you can come in anytime during our opening hours on Sunday. And then we do appointments at other times during the week. If people want to come out, we can make an appointment.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, we're going to step away for just a few moments, and we'll come back for our education. So we'll see y'all in just a few minutes.
All right. Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Hey, this is Jeff Coe from TexasWineLover.com. We're here with Will, Michael, and Jen from We Know Texas Vino.
And this is Amy Nemec with the Texas Wine Lover mobile app. We're wrapping up the interview and moving into the wine education portion of the episode, so stick with us.
Welcome back, everybody, to We Know Texas Vino, and this is the education segment. And this was going to be actually a fun one here. You know, when we down at Fredericksburg, we did talk about barrels with Michael Barton down there and maintenance of it. And then we were at OG Cellars, and we talked about, aging wine in barrels there. But what we never talked about is actually the differences in using a neutral barrel with staves and how much or how little it could change the composition of the wine. So we're going to actually talk to Tyler about that right now. So we talked about this just a little bit ago off air, that you use nothing but neutral barrels, correct?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And then you want to oak it, you actually put staves in there.
That's correct.
Okay, so explain to our listeners, the importance of, using a neutral barrel and then using the staves and plus or minus in the staves to acquire the taste that you're looking for.
Well, and back up just a smidge. For anyone who's not aware, what is a stave? First of all, and then the process.
Yeah. So we have used barrels for forever to store things and to store wine, and of course it's not completely neutral. It gives oak components to the wine, and so. After a few years, a lot of the oak components that are in the barrel have been already leached out, and so they're considered neutral, right? So the barrels no longer are really giving that. They can still hold wine. There's still some oxygen transfer that happens, but they're not adding additional flavors necessarily. So you can either, and a lot of wineries do at that point, sell their barrels off, get rid of them, and then buy new ones. But we're kind of budget minded, so the alternative then is to do oak staves, and so these are made from the same type of oak that the barrels are made for, and there's special companies that do this, that they take those staves and cut them into segments that you can slit through the bunghole of the barrel and add that oak component to it. So it gives you extra life to your barrels.
Right.
So it's basically just kind of like adding a wooden stake into that barrel.
Yeah, it's a toasted oak stick.
Nice.
Yep. And you said toasted. Now there's multiple levels of toasting of those staves.
Yeah.
So explain to each levels that you can get those toasted on.
So you have, in general, you've got American oak and French oak. There's also Hungarian oak, which is more similar to French. I've got some Hungarian oak barrels, but so you kind of decide if you're going French or American, and there's different components or compounds with each one. And then toast levels go from like light to medium plus, dark, and depending on that toast level, that's just they burn it basically. Right. It releases different compounds from the wood that then interact with the wine in different ways. So, and I don't have it memorized what toast level does what, but that's where you get your vanillas and leather and just some of these different. Sometimes dill. American oak can have dill out of it, which is a weird one. If you've ever come across a wine that just smells like strongly of dill, it's American oak.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'd never heard of that one.
I hadn't either. That's fun.
Yeah, first time I came across that, I was like, that was really weird, but it's 100%. That's what it is.
So, is it? And I actually have never heard of this, so this is why I'm asking this. So, can you actually take a mix American with Hungarian when you do the staves? Can you mix those in there?
So that's kind of the nice thing about working with staves is that if you're doing just a regular barrel, you have a French oak barrel. It's French oak medium plus. That's what it is. All the way through.
Yeah.
But with a neutral barrel using staves or a poly tank, the flex tanks like we use in the staves, you can kind of mix and match. So you can start with a medium plus, and later if you want to add another one, you can do that and tailor it more specifically to what your taste profile might be.
And when you refer to a neutral barrel, it's just simply a barrel that does not impart any flavor notes into the wine itself. So that could be stainless steel, or it could be like the flex tank.
Yeah. So neutral barrel would specifically be an oak barrel that has already held wine in it for several years.
Right.
Okay.
Stainless steel is a little different because there's no oxygen transfer.
That makes sense.
It's a non-permeable membrane.
Gotcha.
The poly tanks are designed actually to allow the same kind of oxygen transfer as an oak barrel. So they are barrel replicas.
Very okay.
Yeah, I just found out about flex tanks. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, I really like them.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean, I would love to have one, but I can't afford one.
Yeah. What kills you on them is the shipping on those things.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So when you're using a stave, in one of the things that we kind of talked about is if you taste and you think, okay, I need some more to this, you can add more staves to it, or if you're thinking this is getting a little too much, you can remove staves. How does?
Yeah, exactly. So you can like kind of taste along as it's going and seeing how the oak progression is coming along. And there's been several times where I've come across and I've wanted more oak impact on it, and so I'll do another stave or half of one and put it in for another 6 months and come back to it. And so that's one of the nice things you can.
Interesting.
And there's different companies that do it too. So I'm actually getting ready to do. I like doing trials, like side-by-side trials. So I've got one company that I've been using, but I'm gonna check some Flex Tanks. Actually has some barrel staves, and I'm gonna try theirs for the first time. I'm gonna do a side-by-side and see what difference it is between the two vendors. It's all about trying to find the right one and narrowing down that taste profile.
So do those staves actually eventually go neutral also?
Yeah. So they'll extract, from 6 months or so or 8 months is kind of extraction time, but you can leave them in there longer. But yeah, they will eventually go neutral.
Can you, I'm going to say it, shave them down or sand them down to, I mean, I know some of them I've seen are real thick and some of them are really, really thin. So I know with the really thin ones, you probably couldn't do that as much, but maybe the thicker ones, would you be
could. The ones that I get are kind of ridged and textured, so you couldn't really, there's not an easy way to kind of shave it down or plane it.
Gotcha.
And so like the ones I get are supposed to have both types of grain, like cross grain as well as like parallel with the grain. So it's, I don't know. Nerdy wood stuff.
Is there a cost savings between the two or different?
100%. Yeah. Barrels are pretty expensive. So a new American oak barrel is close to $1,000.
Wow.
Okay. French oak, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400.
Okay.
Plus shipping on top of that.
Yeah.
And you get 3 years out of it.
Yeah.
So versus a stave can be between $50 and $150.
Oh yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
big difference.
Is there taste differentiation in that too, or is it
depends on who you ask?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Barrel purists will absolutely say yes, they're inferior, but I don't find there to be.
Yeah.
And there's been studies, side-by-side studies, comparing barrels to flex tanks with staves and finding there not being really discernible differences to most palates.
Yeah.
We were at Twigga this last year, and I don't remember what company it had, but they had a stainless steel 55-gallon barrel shaped, and inside of it had these little racks that you put your stave inside of it.
Oh, interesting.
And then you had this little handle at the top. You stirred your wine in that steel staves, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't think you want to stir your wine, that often, but I mean, I guess that's
interesting.
It was pretty interesting.
I mean, if there's wine gadgets for everything.
Oh yeah,
that is a true statement.
Oh man. Well, Tyler, I appreciate your time here, and thank you for kind of helping people understand more about the barrels and the aging with wood and the oak and stuff. But Randall, what are your takeaways from today?
One is this is a really fun place.
Yeah,
it just has a really genuinely chill, inviting vibe. I really that's definitely one of my takeaways is that you guys are doing it right. Awesome. I sense that it's a passion, and what you're doing is out of that passion. Sure. And so we were trying some of your Infinitas, is that how?
Yes.
So which to me, I'm like, that's just experimentation and let's try something fun, which it doesn't necessarily it alleviates some of the hoity-toity, and so that's definitely one of my takeaways.
Yeah.
And one of my takeaways here is that, you're never too old to change careers. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because I'm in the process of doing it too. Eventually one of these days, I'm going to get out of IT and become a winemaker myself. And you're never too old to change careers, but you always have your past to always hold on to. So
that's good.
That's good. Thank you. Well, you have quotes for the day, Randall?
I do. So I've got a couple of quotes today that we're going to discuss. Well, not really discuss, just share.
Well, if they're very deep, we're going to have to discuss them.
Well, Aristotle once said that. No, it's. So here's my two quotes.
Okay.
My first one is, "Wine is to the taste buds and the mind what music is to the soul."
Okay, I know you're taking Michael's spot, but holy crap, did you have to get that deep?
I actually wrote that on the way over here myself. Sorry. So my second...
repeat that again.
Wine is to the taste buds and the mind what music is to the soul.
Huh. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
The second one, not as deep in any way, shape, or form, and actually got it off of a kitchen towel. It is, wine combined with dinner is winter.
Nice.
I like that. We need to name a red bottle after that. So, well, right before we finish up here, and I forgot to do this, so we want to give thanks to our sponsors at Texas Wine Lover app and our Texas Wine Club and Fly with Wine, and then, of course, Andy Gonzalez, the wino guy, wine enthusiast, guided wine tours, blind tastings, and deductive tasting guidelines. So, with all that being said, this is Will.
This is Randall.
And this is We Know Texas Vino. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.